I was lying at the bottom of the stairs, my ankle twisted at an impossible angle, staring up at my sister Lauren who had just pushed me. And you know what she said? Guess you won't be walking to Dad's lawyer meeting tomorrow. I called the police right there from the hospital bed. What they found in her apartment 3 hours later made my father cry for the first time in 20 years. But before I tell you what happened next, if you've ever been the overlooked child, the one who was never quite good enough in your family's eyes, hit that subscribe button. This story is for everyone who's ever been underestimated. And trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. My name is Rachel, I'm 25 years old, and I live in Washington, D.C. Well, I live here now. But this story starts 6 months ago, back in my childhood home in Alexandria, Virginia, where I learned that the sister I'd defended my entire life had been planning to kill me. I know that sounds dramatic. Trust me, I wish it was an exaggeration. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand our family dynamic to understand how it got this far. My sister Lauren is 3 years older than me. 28, beautiful, charismatic, the kind of person who walks into a room and everyone turns to look. She got Dad's sharp features and Mom's grace. Me? I got Dad's stubbornness and anxiety that made family dinners feel like performance reviews. Our father, Peter Lockwood, built Lockwood Industries from nothing. He's one of those self-made millionaire types who believes success is 99% hard work and 1% knowing when to be ruthless. Our mother, Diana, died when I was 7 and Lauren was 10. Brain aneurysm. One day she was making us pancakes, the next day she was gone. After Mom died, Dad threw himself into work. And Lauren? Lauren stepped into this weird mother-daughter golden child role that I was somehow always on the outside of. I remember being 9 years old, sitting at the dining table trying to show Dad my report card, straight A's except for 1 B+ in gym class. He barely glanced at it. That's nice, Rachel. Then Lauren walked in with her report card, and suddenly he had all the time in the world to celebrate her achievements, even though her grades were lower than mine. It was always like that. When Lauren wanted to go to Georgetown for college, Dad paid every penny. When I wanted to go to art school, he told me I needed to be realistic and think about my future. I ended up at community college studying accounting because that's what he approved of. When Lauren landed a job at a friend's marketing firm, Dad bragged about it at every business dinner. When I got hired at a nonprofit managing their finances, he asked me when I was going to get a real job. I learned early on that I would never be Lauren. And I learned to be okay with that, or at least I told myself I was. Everything changed 3 months ago when Dad got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I remember the day he told us. We were sitting in his study, this massive room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and the smell of old leather and expensive whiskey. Dad was behind his desk, and Lauren and I sat across from him like we were employees getting reprimanded. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Dad said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. The doctors give me 4 to 6 months. Maybe a year if I'm lucky and the treatment works. Lauren burst into tears immediately. Dramatic, performative tears that she's always been good at. I just sat there, numb, trying to process that my father, this man who seemed immortal, who I'd spent my whole life trying to impress, was dying. I've already spoken to my lawyer, Jeffrey Benet, Dad continued. I'm updating my will. I wanted to tell you both in person before the reading. This is when Lauren composed herself with remarkable speed. Of course, Daddy. Whatever you think is best. Dad looked at me, really looked at me, for what felt like the first time in years. Rachel, I know I haven't always been fair to you. My heart stopped. Was this it? Was this the moment where everything changed? I'm splitting the estate differently than you might expect, he said. Not 50-50. Lauren's face went pale. I felt my stomach drop. Rachel gets 60%. Lauren gets 40%. The silence in that room was deafening. Lauren recovered first, of course. That's very fair, Daddy. Rachel's always been so responsible with money. Her voice was sugary sweet, but I saw her hands clenching the armrests of her chair. I couldn't speak. 60%? Of everything? Lockwood Industries, the house, the investment portfolios, we were talking about approximately $40 million. There's a condition, Dad added. Rachel, you have to promise me you'll take care of your sister. Lauren's never been good with money, and I worry about her. And just like that, the moment was ruined. Even in giving me more, he was reminding me that I was the responsible one, the boring one, the one whose job was to take care of golden child Lauren. Of course, I heard myself say. I'll always look out for Lauren. Lauren gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We'll always be sisters, Rachel. No matter what. I should have seen it then. I should have recognized that look. But I was too caught up in the fact that Dad had finally acknowledged me. If this story is hitting close to home, if you know what it's like to be the responsible child who never gets the credit, please subscribe. You're going to want to see where this goes, and I promise you, the ending is worth it. Your support means everything to channels that share real stories like this. Over the next 2 months, as Dad started chemotherapy, things with Lauren got weird. At first, it was small things. She'd forget to tell me about family meetings with the lawyer. She'd schedule Dad's doctor appointments without telling me, then act surprised when I showed up anyway. She started having private conversations with Dad that would end abruptly when I entered the room. Then it escalated. I started finding things moved in my apartment. I had my own place in DC, about 30 minutes from Dad's house. At first I thought I was going crazy. My keys would be in different places. My laptop would be closed when I remembered leaving it open. Small things that made me question myself. Then my brakes failed. I was driving to visit Dad on a Tuesday afternoon when my brake pedal went straight to the floor. I barely managed to coast through a red light and into a parking lot, my heart hammering. The mechanic said it looked like someone had cut the brake line, but not all the way through, just enough that it would fail after some use. Could have been vandals, he said. You report this to the police? I didn't. I should have, but I didn't. Because in the back of my mind, a voice was whispering that I was being paranoid, that I was making things up for attention, that I was being dramatic, all the things my family had always implied about me. A week later, I got food poisoning so severe I ended up in the emergency room. The last thing I'd eaten was leftover pasta that Lauren had brought me from Dad's house, saying she'd made extra and thought of me. The doctor said it looked like deliberate contamination. This wasn't just bad food, Dr. Samichin told me. This was a significant dose of something toxic. Do you have any idea how this could have happened? I told him I didn't. But I was starting to have suspicions. I started keeping a journal, documenting everything. Every weird occurrence, every time Lauren showed up unexpectedly, every accident that happened around her. My best friend Kelly told me I was losing it. Rachel, I love you, but your sister isn't trying to kill you. You're stressed because your dad's dying. Maybe you should talk to someone? Maybe I was crazy. Maybe grief was making me paranoid. Then Dad's condition took a sudden turn for the worse. The call came from Jeffrey Benet, Dad's lawyer, on a Thursday morning. Rachel, your father wants to have a family meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. He's insisting it can't wait. He wants to make some changes to the will, and he's asked that both you and Lauren be present. My hands went cold. What kind of changes? He wouldn't tell me over the phone. But Rachel, he sounded worried. He specifically asked me to make sure you come, no matter what Lauren tells you. That last part sent chills down my spine. What does that mean? Just, be careful. And be there. Don't let anyone convince you not to come. I immediately called Dad, but Lauren answered his phone. Oh, Rachel. Dad's sleeping right now. Can I take a message? Jeffrey just called about a meeting tomorrow. Oh, that's been canceled, Lauren interrupted smoothly. Didn't Jeffrey call you? Dad's not feeling well enough. We're rescheduling for next week. That's not what Jeffrey said. A pause. Well, I'm here with Dad, and I think I would know better than some lawyer, don't you? Dad specifically told me to cancel it. Let me talk to him. He's sleeping, Rachel. I'm not going to wake him up because you don't trust me. Her voice had an edge now. You know what your problem is? You've always been jealous. Even now, when Dad's dying, you can't just let me take care of him. You always have to insert yourself and make everything about you. It was such a perfect Lauren move, take my concern and flip it into a character flaw. Make me the problem. I'm coming over, I said. Don't bother. We won't let you in. Dad needs rest, not your drama. She hung up. I sat there, my phone in my hand, trying to decide what to do. Every instinct told me to go to Dad's house anyway. But that voice in my head, the one that had been trained by years of being told I was overreacting, too sensitive, too dramatic, told me to wait. I called Jeffrey back. Lauren says the meeting is cancelled. It absolutely is not, Jeffrey said firmly. Rachel, I've known your father for 30 years. He called me this morning in tears. He said he's made a terrible mistake and he needs to fix it before it's too late. He specifically said not to listen to anything Lauren tells you. Be here tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'm going to make sure your father is there, even if I have to go get him myself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything that had happened over the past 2 months. The brake lines. The food poisoning. The way Lauren was isolating Dad from me. At 2 a.m., I made a decision. I was going to Dad's house first thing in the morning, before Lauren could stop me. I never made it. I woke up at 6 a.m. to someone pounding on my apartment door. Groggy, I stumbled out of bed and looked through the peephole. Lauren. For a moment, I considered not opening it. But she was my sister. Despite everything, despite my suspicions, she was still my sister. I opened the door. Rachel, thank God, she said, pushing past me into the apartment. She was disheveled, her makeup smeared like she'd been crying. It's Dad. He's asking for you. You need to come right now. My heart stopped. What happened? Is he? Just get dressed. Please. We need to go. I ran to my bedroom, threw on clothes, grabbed my phone and keys. Lauren was pacing by the door, looking at her watch. Should I drive or, I started to say. We'll take my car. It's faster. Warning bells went off in my head, but I ignored them. This was about Dad. We headed down the stairs of my apartment building. I lived on the 3rd floor. Lauren was ahead of me, walking quickly. Halfway down the 2nd flight of stairs, she stopped suddenly. I nearly bumped into her. Lauren, what? She turned around, and the look on her face made my blood run cold. It wasn't grief. It wasn't worry. It was calculation. I'm sorry, Rachel, she said. But you're not going to make it to that meeting. And she pushed me. I remember the sensation of falling, the world spinning, my hands grasping at air. I remember the impact, my shoulder hitting the stairs, my body tumbling, each step slamming into me. I remember the final landing, my ankle twisting with a crack that I felt more than heard. And then I was lying at the bottom of the stairs, pain radiating through my entire body, staring up at Lauren. She walked down the stairs slowly, calmly, and stood over me. Here's what's going to happen, she said, her voice eerily calm. You're going to have had an accident. You were rushing, you fell. You're going to miss the meeting today. And by next week, Dad will be too sick to change anything. The will stays as it is, and honestly, Rachel, 60-40 is more than generous considering you've contributed nothing to this family. I tried to speak, but the pain was overwhelming. You always thought you were so smart, Lauren continued. So responsible. But you know what? You were always too weak to do what needed to be done. Dad was going to give you more than me. Me. The daughter who actually took care of him, who actually visited him, who actually gave up her life to be there for him. And you were going to get more because you can balance a checkbook? She knelt down next to me, and I saw something in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Or maybe I'd always seen it and just never let myself acknowledge it. Hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred. I tried to do this quietly, she whispered. The breaks should have worked. The food poisoning should have been worse. But you're like a cockroach, Rachel. You just won't die. My phone was in my pocket. With shaking hands, I managed to pull it out. Lauren saw and laughed. Who are you going to call? Dad? He's not even. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My sister pushed me down the stairs, I gasped out. I need an ambulance. And police. Lauren's face went white. She grabbed for my phone, but I held on. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? The operator asked. Yes, I said, looking straight at Lauren. She's trying to kill me for our father's inheritance. She just admitted to tampering with my breaks and poisoning my food. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line with me. Lauren stood up, backing away. You're crazy. You fell. Everyone knows you're unstable. I came here to help you and you're having some kind of breakdown. Ma'am, is the person who pushed you still there? The operator asked. Yes. Can you get to a safe location? I couldn't move. My ankle was definitely broken, and my shoulder felt dislocated. I can't walk, I told the operator. I heard sirens in the distance. Lauren heard them too. She looked at me, and for a moment, I thought she might try to finish what she started. Instead, she ran. The paramedics arrived first, then the police. I told them everything, the brake lines, the food poisoning, the push, Lauren's confession. I told them about the meeting with Dad's lawyer, about how Lauren had tried to prevent me from going. One of the officers, a woman named Officer Rose Martinez, sat with me in the ambulance. Rachel, we're going to need you to give a formal statement. But first, is there anything you need us to do right now? My father, I said. Peter Lockwood. He lives at 847 Maple Drive in Alexandria. My sister has been isolating him. He has a lawyer meeting today at 2 p.m. with Jeffrey Benet. Please make sure he gets there. Please. Officer Martinez made a call. They took me to Virginia Hospital Center. Broken ankle, dislocated shoulder, 3 cracked ribs, and a concussion. I'd be in the hospital for at least a few days. While I was in surgery to repair my ankle, the police went to Lauren's apartment. What they found there changed everything. Officer Martinez came to see me the next morning. I was drugged up on pain medication, my ankle in a cast, my shoulder immobilized. Rachel, we found some concerning things at your sister's residence, she said gently. With your permission, I'd like to tell you what we discovered. I nodded. We found a journal detailing her plans. She'd been planning this for months, since before your father's diagnosis. She had life insurance policies in your name that you never signed for, forgeries. She had researched ways to kill someone that would look like accidents. The brake line tampering, the food contamination, it was all documented in her own handwriting. My stomach turned. There's more, Officer Martinez continued. We found evidence that she'd been stealing from your father's accounts. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. We're talking about over $500,000 transferred to offshore accounts over the past 2 years. Oh my God, I whispered. Your father's lawyer, Mr. Benet, confirmed that your father made it to the meeting yesterday. He was quite upset to hear about what happened to you. He asked that I tell you that everything has been taken care of. What does that mean? You'll have to ask him. But Rachel, your father wants to see you. He's been trying to call, but we had your phone as evidence. We can take you to him if you're well enough. Before I tell you what happened when I saw my father, if you're invested in this story, if you want to know how everything ends, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be heard. The overlooked, the underestimated, the ones who were never enough, we all deserve our moment of justice. And trust me, what my father told me will break your heart. Officer Martinez wheeled me to Dad's hospital room the next afternoon. He'd been admitted the same day I had, his condition had deteriorated rapidly, and Jeffrey had called an ambulance when Dad collapsed during their meeting. He looked so small in that hospital bed. This man who had seemed larger than life my entire childhood was withering away, his skin gray, his eyes sunken. But when he saw me, he started crying. "Rachel," he choked out. "Rachel, I'm so sorry." I'd never seen my father cry. Not at Mom's funeral. Not at any point in my life. Dad. No, let me say this. Please. He reached for my hand with trembling fingers. I knew. I suspected for months that Lauren was stealing from me. Jeffrey found the discrepancies. And when he told me, I didn't want to believe it. Because if it was true, it meant I'd been wrong about everything. About who I'd chosen to trust. About who I'd pushed away. Tears were streaming down his face. And then I realized something worse. I realized that if she was willing to steal from me, what would she do for the inheritance? And I thought about you, Rachel. You who I'd ignored and dismissed and criticized your entire life. You who I'd never protected or valued. And I knew I'd made you a target. Dad, you couldn't have known. I called Jeffrey immediately. I told him I needed to change the will completely. I was going to give you everything and set up a small trust for Lauren. I thought if I moved fast enough, if I could just get it done before she realized, but I was too late. I almost got you killed. He was sobbing now, struggling to breathe. Mr. Lockwood, you need to calm down, a nurse said, rushing in. But Dad held on to my hand. I was a terrible father to you, Rachel. I saw your mother in you, her kindness, her strength, her quiet competence, and it terrified me. When she died, I couldn't bear to look at you. So I focused on Lauren because she was easier. She was surface level. She didn't remind me of what I'd lost. My own tears were falling now. But you, he continued, you were always the one. You were always the daughter I should have celebrated. You were always enough. More than enough. And I'm so sorry I never told you that. I laid my head on his bed, careful of my injuries and his, and we cried together. Lauren was arrested and charged with attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement, and a list of other crimes. Her lawyer tried to argue temporary insanity, grief over our father's diagnosis, but the journal and the months of planning made that impossible to prove. The trial was a media circus. Heiress attempts to murder sister for fortune. The headlines wrote themselves. I testified from a wheelchair, my ankle still healing. I looked at Lauren across that courtroom, and she looked like a stranger. Or maybe I was finally seeing her clearly for the first time. She was convicted on all counts. 15 years minimum. During her sentencing, she was given a chance to speak. I expected her to apologize, to show some remorse. Instead, she looked directly at me and said, "You were never supposed to matter." Everything was fine until Dad decided to play favorites with the wrong daughter. Even at the end, she couldn't see it. Couldn't see that it was never about favorites or who mattered more. It was about what she was willing to do for money and status. The judge added 2 years to her sentence for lack of remorse. Dad lasted 3 more months. I moved into his house to take care of him, working remotely from my nonprofit job during the day and sitting with him at night. We talked about everything. About Mom, about my childhood, about all the moments he'd missed because he was too busy building an empire. About the daughter I'd been and the woman I'd become despite his neglect. "You're going to do something beautiful with your life," he told me one night, about a week before he passed. "Not because of the money I'm leaving you, but because of who you are. You always have been beautiful, Rachel. I just wish I'd told you sooner." He died on a Tuesday morning, holding my hand, at peace. The will reading was simple. He'd left everything to me, 100%. There was a trust set up with $50,000 for Lauren, accessible only after her release from prison, with strict conditions and oversight. But more importantly, he'd left me a letter. In it, he wrote about each memory he had of me. Every good grade I'd brought home that he dismissed. Every artwork I'd made that he'd barely glanced at. Every attempt I'd made to connect with him that he'd brushed aside. He remembered all of it. And he was sorry for all of it. "You deserved a father who saw you," he wrote. "Instead, you got me. But you became extraordinary anyway, not because of me, but in spite of me. That's real strength, Rachel. That's real worth." It's been 6 months since Dad died. I'm 25 years old, living in Washington, D.C., running the nonprofit I work for. I bought it with part of my inheritance and turned it into a foundation that helps overlooked children in troubled families. I sold Dad's company but kept the house. Some days I walk through those rooms and remember the little girl who tried so hard to be seen. Other days I can barely stand to be there. I'm in therapy. Lots of it. Turns out being the scapegoat child of a narcissistic family system and then almost being murdered by your sister gives you some things to work through. I still have nightmares about falling down those stairs. I still freeze sometimes when I hear footsteps behind me on staircases. But I'm healing. Kelly, my best friend, comes over every Sunday. We cook dinner and watch terrible reality TV, and she listens when I need to talk about everything that happened. Jeffrey Benet, Dad's lawyer, has become an unexpected friend. He's helping me navigate the foundation and often tells me stories about Dad that I never knew, moments where Dad would mention being proud of me but never say it to my face. And Lauren? I don't visit her. I don't write her. Her lawyer sends periodic requests for me to make a statement to the parole board when she's eventually eligible, asking for leniency. I won't. Not because I hate her, I don't, not anymore. But because she needs to serve her time. She needs to understand that actions have consequences. And honestly, I need the safety of knowing she's not out there, planning another attempt. Sometimes people ask me if I ever suspected. If I saw signs growing up that she was capable of this. The truth is, I don't know. Maybe there were signs I missed. Or maybe this is what happens when someone who's always gotten everything they wanted suddenly faces the possibility of getting less than someone they see as beneath them. Dad once told me that money reveals character. It doesn't change who you are, it just amplifies what's already there. Lauren was always entitled, always jealous, always willing to do whatever it took to be first. The inheritance just raised the stakes. I think about my mom sometimes. Diana. I was so young when she died that my memories of her are fragmented, the smell of her perfume, the sound of her laugh, the way she'd braid my hair before bed. But I remember one thing clearly. I was maybe 6 years old, and Lauren had taken credit for a drawing I'd made. It was a picture of our family, and Mom had loved it. But when she praised it, Lauren said she'd drawn it. I started to cry, to protest, but Mom just smiled at me. Later that night, she came to my room. "I knew you drew that picture, sweetheart," she told me. "Your sister needs external validation to feel worthwhile. But you, Rachel? You're going to learn to validate yourself. And that's going to make you unstoppable." I didn't understand it then. But I think I do now. Lauren needed to be the favorite, needed the inheritance, needed the status and the money and the recognition because without it, she didn't know who she was. But me? I'd learned to exist without validation. I'd learned to be enough for myself. And in the end, that's what saved me. Not the inheritance, not Dad's deathbed apologies, but the strength I'd built from years of being overlooked. If you're reading this, if you're the child who never quite measured up, who was always second best, who tried so hard to be seen and valued and loved, I want you to know something. You are enough. You always have been. Your worth doesn't come from other people's recognition. It doesn't come from being the favorite or the golden child or the one who gets praised. It comes from who you are when nobody's watching. From the kindness you show even when it's not appreciated. From the strength you build even when it's not acknowledged. My father spent his last months realizing what he'd lost by not seeing me. Don't wait for that moment. Don't spend your life seeking validation from people who will never give it. Build your own foundation. Know your own worth. And if someone tries to push you down, literally or metaphorically, don't be afraid to call for help. Don't be afraid to say, "This isn't okay." I spent years doubting myself, questioning whether I was being too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. And that almost got me killed. Trust your instincts. Trust yourself. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. And you deserve better than being anyone's second choice. My name is Rachel. I'm 25 years old, I live in Washington, D.C., and I survived my sister's attempt to murder me for an inheritance. But more importantly, I survived a childhood of being invisible. And I came out the other side knowing my worth. That's the real inheritance my father left me. Not the money, not the company, not the house. But the knowledge that I was always enough. Always. And so are you. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the overlooked child or the forgotten sibling, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling your story. I read every single one, and your words matter. We're building a community of people who were underestimated and came out stronger. You're not alone in this. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, you are enough. You always have been.